Okay, guys. So for science and social studies today, we are going to be focusing on the Pueblo Native Americans. So they are the Native Americans that built pueblos, right? They used the dirt and straw and water. They would dry their bricks out in the sun, and then they were able to create really sturdy homes. So yesterday we talked about the Jumanos, and they were a Native American tribe that did build pueblos. And then today we're going to talk about the Tigua. Okay, so these are different tribes. They still use pueblos. Um, and they lived in different parts of Texas. So we're going to explain the economic activities for them. We talked about the Jumanos yesterday, how they survived, how they got food and shelter and clothing and all of those things. So we're going to do the same thing for Tigua today. They were a little different in different areas of Texas. Okay, so the Tigua, unlike the Jumanos, the Tigua were not native to the mountains and basins region. In 1680, they fled the Spanish and settled by the Pueblo Indians of New Mexico. They traveled from New Mexico down the Rio Grande to El Paso. When they got there, they established Isleta del Sur Pueblo, but it's known as the Tigua. So, if you remember, the settlers came, right? The Spanish Europeans came over and they kind of wanted to take over. They wanted the Native Americans to live life their way and do the things that they wanted. And the Tigua were like, no way, we're not doing what these Europeans are telling us to do. We're going to run. So they basically fled. They left where they were living in Texas and they went to settle by other Pueblo Indians in New Mexico. They were in New Mexico. They traveled down into El Paso and then they established their own little community there, and they're known as the Tigua. So they did not want to live the way the Europeans were kind of forcing them to live. So they were ready to get out of there. Okay, the Tigua, like most Pueblo Indians, are farmers. They would build their pueblos and they had to stay in one spot, right? If you build this huge structure, they were like almost like little apartments. They couldn't just pick them up and move if they wanted. They were not nomads. So they stayed in one spot. They could build crops. They could have farms. All of this stuff was going on here. They could plant corn, vegetables, anything they wanted, they could plant and grow because they were going to stay there. They were going to live there. The crops that they grow provided most of their food. So they ate what they planted is what they ate. One of the most important crop is corn. They also grow other crops such as beans and squash. So that's how they survived, how they fed each other, fed their families, was all the crops. And you have to tend to the crops. You can't just plant them and hope that your vegetables will grow. You have to make sure that bugs aren't eating them. You have to water them, make sure they're in the right environment, getting sunlight. All of those things are important when you're planting. So they had a pretty big job to feed the whole community with their plants and their crops. So they definitely utilize farming. Okay, the Tigua also grew cotton, and they used the cotton to weave clothes or cloth for clothes. So if you remember the Jumanos yesterday, they had like animal hide that would be something they would wear. But the Tigua Indians, they planted cotton, so they could make clothes out of cotton. And then they had gourds, kind of like ugly looking pumpkins, but they're kind of cute. Gourds were dried out and they provided containers that they used to carry and store items. So if you see here, their bowls, these kind of like jars and vases they used to store things, and they would dry out these gourds. So they're definitely using their resources around them. They're making life a little easier on themselves by having all these supplies and natural resources. Just like other pueblos, the Tigua created beautiful pottery. Okay, they stored and cooked their food in the pottery they made, and they also used the pottery to carry and store water. So if they would have to walk maybe to a river or a stream or something and get fresh water, this is how they would carry it back and forth. This is a picture of the pottery shares excavated by archaeologists near El Paso. So they found pieces of this near El Paso. So they know the Tigua were there, and they did use pottery. And they cooked their food in there, stored food in there, kind of like a jar you would have at home. As they did in New Mexico, the Tigua lived in pueblos. Okay, they're one of the Pueblo Indians, just like we talked about. The Jumano were some of the pueblos. They would build these homes. Maybe a family lives in this part, and a different family lives over here, and a different family lives up here. They're pretty sturdy. They made their own bricks out of mud and water and straw, and would dry them out in the sun, and then build these pretty sturdy homes. And they look nice. They've got windows. It's not just like a teepee that some of the other Native American tribes were using. The name of their pueblo was Isleta del Sur Pueblo. So this photograph shows what it looked like in 1870. So it was after the Tigua were there, but still kind of shows how they held up and stayed, and they're pretty sturdy. Okay, the Tigua baked outside in dome-like structures called hornos. So if you can see here, they would bake. It would get really, really hot in there. You can see in here too. Really, really hot. It's hot where they're living, and then they've kind of closed it off and built this dome that captures heat and holds it in. That's where they would bake their foods. They were used to bake bread, and they were introduced to the Americas by the Spaniards. So the Spaniards kind of came over and showed them, hey, look, you can build these little huts almost, structures, and bake in them. So this picture here was taken in the late 1800s. It shows a Tigua potter standing next to a horno. So she's got a pot there. Maybe she's collecting food or water or something, and she's standing right next to that dome-shaped thing they would use to cook, to bake. Where are they now? So today, let me move this out of the way. Today, the Isleta del Sur Pueblo Indians still live in the El Paso area. So they are still around today, and they live in El Paso. The tribe is federally recognized by the U.S. government. So the U.S. does recognize them and say, yes, you were here first. The Europeans came over. You're a part of the United States and part of our history. The Tigua still use their political system and ceremonial traditions. So they still follow all the traditions that they did a long, long time ago. They follow the culture, eat the same foods, have the same kind of leaders that they did back then, and have ceremonies and same kind of clothing and traditions they did. They make plans for the future while celebrating their culture and history. So they still farming have their crops and growing different plants, and they still live, still are around today. The Tigua, remember the Jumanos kind of disappeared. They kind of joined other tribes. The Tigua are still around. All right, so this video is how it is today in the Isleta del Sur Pueblo. I don't have the sound on here for you to see, but it is in Schoology. So I'm going to show you in Schoology how you can get to this video. You need to watch it before you can get to your assignment. So if you go to your courses, go to Social Studies for Friday. Social Studies are week of April 5th. You're going to go to Friday, and you have a video first. So this, if you click right here, it says Social Studies video. You'll be able to watch, and this is about the real Pueblo Indians. They have a cultural center down near El Paso. So it's like what it's like today. And you'll see some of their traditions and their cultures there. So you'll watch that video first. It's right here on Friday. Watch the video. And then you're going to answer your question here. So you have one more video. You'll click it in Schoology. You'll watch it. And then list one interesting fact that you have learned about the Jumano and Tigua Indian tribes. Think about what you saw in the video and what you have learned throughout the week. So you're going to use what we learned today, yesterday, Wednesday, these two videos. You'll watch this one and you'll watch this one. This one's embedded in your question. And then answer some interesting facts about it. Okay, and that's it for social studies today. You guys here at school, you guys until Discovery, you can do STMath, iStation, or Prodigy. And then everyone at home, you guys are going to go to Discovery Tile at 9:20. We have PE today. So make sure you go to your Discovery Tile and go to PE today. Don't forget to join Miss Uresti's Zoom link at 10:10. 10:10, you're going to join Miss Uresti for math. The Zoom link is right in here. If you go to our attendance folder, right here's Miss Uresti's Zoom. Join her for math. And then you'll finish your to-do list after lunch and recess.